Hey there, welcome to the 100th episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. I don't know where the time goes. I guess that's almost 2 years. It just kind of snuck up on me. And so I thought I would share tips and lessons that I've learned over the past 100 episodes. A lot has changed for us internally in the background, how we promote it, kind of what's going on in the industry right now. And I thought those tips, it would be fun for me to kind of go over what's gone on in the past year. I can't believe it. And share some really insightful tips for you that you can take to your podcast or guesting and repurposing your podcast. So I've got 17 lessons and tips that I learned over the past 100 episodes. So I will start diving in. So I would say the first one is to make sure that you do your guest research. Don't rush the process. Always listen to episodes that the guest has been on to see if their personality is a match. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and then, if I try to rush the process and I have a guest on, yes, on paper, they look great. But then when they were on the show, the personality just wasn't a fit for me, like the chemistry, the energy, and it really affects the experience for the listeners and even my energy and how I show up for the show. So it definitely is important to take that extra step, listen to the episodes that the guest has been on, and just make sure that it is a fit for you personality wise. The second is don't overcomplicate the process. I remember when I started this podcast. Yes, of course, I've had other podcasts in the past, but at the beginning, I actually thought I would go live in Facebook and take advantage of that medium. And so I would invite the guest. I had, I think it was StreamYard or Be Live or Believe or whatever it's called at the time, and coordinating that and then sharing that we were going to go live on Facebook and then taking that and then a few weeks later turning it into a podcast. And in all honesty, it was a good strategy to go live and help, that Facebook algorithm and to get people live on the show. But I think it was complicated for the guest because they kind of had to promote that they were going to go live, but then they also promoted when the episode went live as a quote unquote podcast. And for me and my team in the back end, it was just a logistical nightmare. I think I ended up doing it maybe, I don't know, 5, 7 times maybe. And then I was like, I'm done. So I let that go. I guess that's a bonus lesson is it's okay to let things go sometimes. Tip number 3, it's okay to bail on a process and pivot. Okay. So I guess, yes, that is a lesson where I just pivoted and decided not to do live Facebooks anymore. It wasn't working out for me logistically. And it's okay to let things go and change the process and how I marketed the podcast. It's okay to change things midstream. 4, stay aligned with your podcast's purpose. Now, I have this whole time stayed true with my purpose for having this podcast, and that is to help entrepreneurs who are guesting on podcasts and to help those that are hosting their own podcast to be able to launch, produce, promote, leverage their podcast, but also take advantage of all the opportunities that podcasting allows. And so when I get pitched for potential guests, and believe me, I get a ton. And there have been some where I'm like, ooh, like they've got a really good following, or they have a huge list, or they are a big name, or their topic is super hot. But I really had to rein that in to say, no, it's not a fit for The podcast, it's not a fit for my personal goals. And so you really need to stay true to your purpose and your goals for your podcast. You don't want to water down your message. You don't want to water down your ability to target and attract your ideal client while you're marketing and producing your podcast. Lesson number 5, switching hosts can be super painful. Ask all the questions up front and get support. This was a brutal lesson, not gonna lie. When you change the hosts, you actually have to change all the MP3 links that you have embedded on your post pages, your show notes pages, if you are switching it. And I was like, oh, that's a lot. I'm not going to do that. And then switching back, there's so many little pieces in the back end. I did change my mind. The whole process was painful. I'm never going to do it again. So yes, so make sure you get all the information up front if you are going to switch the host, because there are so many like directories and iTunes and just different things that are connected, links that you don't realize that are affected by switching your host, things that are tied in. All right, so lesson number 6 is leaning into collaborative opportunities. It's so funny. Like years ago when I had my, other podcasts, even at the beginning of the Leverage Your Podcast show, I felt kind of uncomfortable in the green room. It felt weird to me to feel like, ask if there's any synergy or how we can work together or who their audience is or who they're serving, asking them about questions about their business. I just did not feel comfortable doing that at all. And then I don't know what shifted, but about a year ago, I finally realized, okay, Lindsay, you need to like get over this and figure it out. And I have to say, one of my clients, Melanie Benson, she has a collaboration currency, and one of her products, programs, and a workshop that she has for her clients. And so I don't know if we're like learning through that through osmosis or just kind of opening up my mind to knowing that I have to step into that if I want to expand my business in a way that I can get in front of my ideal client faster. So I have been leaning into that way more in the past 10 months, and it has been super advantageous. Opportunities, podcast swaps, joint ventures, and just helping other people out, and referrals. So it's super beneficial. So not that I thought of my guests as being transactional. I just kind of like had a closed wall in regards to opening that door for collaborations and collaborative conversations. So keep that door open. And so tip number 7 is kind of relates. It's staying in touch and fostering those relationships. So guests that you have on your show, stay in contact with them, comment on their posts. I often will repost what they have. If they have a masterclass coming up or an event or launching a new product, I always go out of my way to share it to my e-list, to share it on social, because I believe in what they're doing. And I am passionate about helping other people in the podcasting industry. And obviously, if I think it's a good resource, it's going to serve my community in a bigger way. So staying in touch and fostering those relationships is super key. All right. So tip number 8 is showcasing your affiliate products that you have on your show page and like the posts that you have on your website. So I have been an affiliate for a number of different products that I use, repurpose.io, TubeBuddy, socialchamp.io. There's a ton. And I gave them to my clients every now and then, but I didn't do a whole lot with it. And then I'm like, why don't I take advantage of the real estate that is my blog post that shares each podcast episode? And so, and it breaks up the text, right? It breaks up the show notes. So I would put in the images that had the call to action about the affiliate product. And then, of course, it links out to my affiliate link that I have. And yeah, I make money every month on affiliate products without really making much effort. So that is, I'm so glad I started doing that a little bit more and leaning into it. Number 9 is actually a very recent lesson, and that is creating a podcast trailer. Thank you, Adam Baru, for getting me hooked into that. So he said, hey, Lindsay, do you want to do a pod swap? We both have a podcast that seems to serve audience. Why don't we did do a podcast swap and we're on each other's shows, but do you want to do a trailer swap? And so I'm like, explain that to me. Like I've kind of heard it, but never really, I don't know, paid much attention to it or gave it its due. So I recorded a trailer about my podcast. He played it on his, I played his on my podcast. And that way we can tap into each other's audiences and cross promote our podcast. And then I'm also doing that with Lindsay Anderson, who was recently on my show as well. A great way to tap into another audience. So that kind of runs into my lesson number 10 is that once you have the trailer, is doing a podcast trailer swap so that you can get into in front of an audience that is listening to similar podcasts. And the trailer it shouldn't be long actually. And it's just basically an intro to your podcast that shares who it's for, what it's about, what they can gain from it, has the music behind it, sounds produced and polished. Again, super short and sweet. And you can use it in way many other different avenues. You can have it on your podcast page that you have, just about your podcast in general. So, and it was fun to do. So, number 11. So you can no longer, as a podcaster, ignore YouTube. It's the second biggest search engine, right? And now they've got podcasts that are being distributed throughout their platform. And of course, there are YouTube shorts now that are basically reels and they're under 60 seconds. And so you can't ignore YouTube. Record your podcast as a video and put that up on YouTube. You can embed it on your show notes page. I actually did a whole episode on video marketing recently. So you might want to listen to that. And of course, I have that on my show notes page on smoothbusinesspodcasting.com if you go to the podcast. And so, yes, you can't ignore YouTube. I have another tip coming up that relates that I'll bring up in a second. But first, I want to talk about the other massive change over the past year, if not 6 months, is AI. You can't ignore that either. I can't believe how much it's grown in a short amount of time. And this is one thing, though, that I did not resist. I knew that I could use AI as a tool in my business to be able to create content easier. It has been a lifesaver for me and a time saver. It does not replace content or my ability for my team to create content because it doesn't really sound human and it sounds kind of sensational, but it's a tool that you can use to speed up your content creation process. So definitely recommend diving into AI if you haven't already. All right, we're at number 13 already. And that is leveraging the video in multiple ways. So I said to film your podcast in video, upload it to YouTube and optimize it. And of course, embed that on your show notes page. But you also want to repurpose the video so you can leverage it. And that is making videograms. So taking out little snippets of the video that shares one tip, one thought, one concept. And so I create square videos that go up in Facebook and LinkedIn, and they're all beautifully branded. They have the captions that run across so people can read it. They don't have to hit play necessarily. And of course, you want to create Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts because they will help you attract your ideal client and get you in front of a new audience. They are getting huge results. I actually have a client, Nancy, who from one of the YouTube shorts that we created for her, she got a ton of views, obviously, but someone reached out. They were already pre-sold and they wanted to work with her right away because of that nugget of information. It made, like, she had been following her for a little while, but it made her like turn that corner to booking that call and becoming a client. So they can really work. All right. Step number 14 is simplifying what assets you send to your guests. And yes, at the beginning, I do admit to overcomplicating things again at first. I gave way too much content and assets to the guest. They were then overwhelmed or confused. So obviously, you do want to make things as easy as possible for your guests to be able to promote. So give them a couple of social media posts, some images, maybe one square video and a reel. It makes it super easy for them to swipe and deploy and share. But don't forget to tag your guests in the posts that you're doing so that you are, in fact, tapping in front of that new audience and tapping into their audience. Sorry. All right. So, number 15, you probably noticed that I have admitted to making some mistakes and overcomplicating things along the way, which I tend to do. So it's okay to admit mistakes. And I'm slowly learning that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say that, everything I do isn't perfect for me. And, you test things, what works, what doesn't. And I've, been in a situation where I was having a really tough time and I needed to pivot. And so the guests, I had a couple that I was friends with. I reached out and said, "Hey, I'm really struggling with this, and this. Can I bend your ear and get your opinion?" And it really helped me out, and it only strengthened the relationship that I had with those people. So it's okay to admit mistakes. I know it's hard. Number 16 is be bold and ask a guest to be on your show that you feel a little bit nervous about asking, or they feel slightly out of reach, that they're, too successful or they're too big of a name. I remember dragging my heels. There was a couple people that I really wanted to have be on my show. And I was like, the imposter syndrome sets in, right? Who am I? Are they really going to want to be on my show? I asked anyways. They came on. It was lovely. It was a great episode. And I got in front of a great audience. So I was really pleased. And so I decided, you know what? Don't let your imposter syndrome and your limiting mindset hold you back from inviting really big guests on your show. If they don't say yes, if it's not a fit right now or not a fit, it's okay. At least you took action and at least you asked anyways. And last is using my podcast leverage system works. So make sure you are publishing for results, distributing for maximum exposure, repurposing for higher visibility, and multiplying for consistent content that boosts your authority and captures leads. And if you want the training to learn the system, of course, I'm not going to go into it all right now, but you can head to leverageyourpodcast.com/free and you can get the system that I use for my show and also my clients as well. So here's to more lessons. We'll see what the next 100 episodes or next year holds in the industry and with me personally. And I still love interviewing the guests that I have. I still love doing solo episodes, which was hard for me at first, believe it or not. And I'm just really enjoying on where the podcast industry is going, all the different automations, all the different advances. And I love the podcast community. And I'm so grateful to how heartwarming they are, how supportive they are, and that we all genuinely want to help each other. So I hope these 17 mistakes, not mistakes, 17 tips and lessons have been helpful for you. And here's to more Leverage Your Podcast episodes. Till next week, guys.